You are quickly approaching the halfway point of your first term as a state representative.
Yes.
Prior to being elected, you spent 27 years as an educator and administrator.
That's correct.
Yet one of my first impression of you was, man, this guy really hates teachers unions. Tell me about that.
Okay. Well, hate is a really strong word. Let's just say the PSEA and I have had an uncomfortable relationship over many years. Really, it's just from what I've experienced and what I've observed. A teachers union is not a kid union. I'm kid first. Everything I do in this house is through the lens of what is best for kids. Teachers unions are not what is best for kids. If something from the union, something that the union believes and something that's best for kids comes into conflict, we're going union every time. That's what they're going to do. It's obvious. There's simple examples of that. I'll start with a local example. In my school district, in the contract, it allows for a good motive. They want to hire more coaches that are teachers. I love that. I think there should be more teachers that step up and coach and do extra activities. However, this forces a school district, at least at our school district, and I know this is at other places as well, to hire a qualified teacher as a coach. What that means, if there's a more qualified coach, you can't hire them because the teacher contract restricts you to hire a qualified teacher instead of the most qualified coach.
Is that how James Franklin got the job?
It might be. It might be. Ironically, my son is a VT graduate. Word is Franklin's going from Penn State to Virginia Tech, so he's following us. Another example of that is collective bargaining in and of itself. The teachers' unions oppose merit pay. I'm a big proponent of merit pay. If a teacher is working harder, is more effective, that teacher should be paid more money. The teachers' union and collective bargaining really encourages mediocre because you get paid the same amount of money. The great ones and the, let's just say, not so great ones are getting paid the same amount of money. During COVID, who wanted schools to be closed down more than anybody else? Teachers' unions. Philadelphia and Chicago schools were closed down for over 500 days, far more than your average school, because the teachers' union pushed for those schools to be closed down. And this list goes on and on and on. So my biggest problem is they are not pro-kid. Sometimes they don't even represent their own teachers. You know that I've been very involved in the cyber charter fight as far as defending school choice. I'm a big advocate of school choice. The PSEA strongly supported HB 1500. HB 1500 would close down cyber schools because they capped the amount of money. I was just with cyber schools yesterday, had them around the table, asked them how many of you would be closed within 2 years because if it goes into the budget. 3/4 of them raised their hands. Now, the interesting thing about that, there are union teachers in cyber charters. PA Cyber Charter, the second biggest charter school cyber charter in the state, is a unionized union. Yeah, so the union is literally advocating for jobs being lost to their members that are in a cyber charter school.
I'm assuming the percentage shows a lot smaller of those
percentage
teachers?
Absolutely in
gotcha.
cyber charters. But there's still over thousands that are members. So they don't advocate for what they say. They have an agenda.
Of course.
The agenda is primarily ideological. And that has really taken over teachers' unions. And that's not to say that I dislike members. The rank and file are good teachers. I mean, most of my friends were all members of the union. I'm talking about the establishment of the union and what they've become. And they become, instead of an advocate for education, they're a threat to education.
Well.
You've entered the smoke-filled room, where we cut through the haze of Harrisburg politics and get to examine the laws and lawmakers that really drive the discussion.
Representative Marc Anderson, thank you for being our first guest and guinea pig today.
Oh, it's great to be here.
So you are a 10th generation York County resident.
That's correct.
What was your childhood like growing up in South Central Pennsylvania in the 70s and 80s?
Well, first of all, I am as 80s as it gets. I turned 10 in 1980 and 20 in 1990. So my entire teenage years were the 1980s. Back then, Central Pennsylvania was a lot different geographically or demographically. There were a lot less houses, a lot more farms. My family from southern York County are farmers. We moved up to the northern part of the county in 1978. So I was kind of back and forth between the farms in southern York County and our home here in just over the line, actually, in Cumberland County. But we were a part of kind of Dillsburg culture because that was the closest town to where we are. So that's what I represent. It was just a simpler time. No phones, 3 TV channels, and we went outside. So one of the best things, being a person who's worked with kids their whole life, we would be better off if we sent the kids outside to run around a lot more and on their devices a lot less.
How do you think it differed from the childhoods of your students?
Well, I think our students, number one, as I mentioned, technology has changed everything for students. On the negative side, they are less personable. They can't deal with conflict. It's easier to type conflict than to speak conflict. On the positive side, they obviously have more information available to them. Now, we haven't taught them, in my opinion, a good way to filter that information to find what is true. So that's a big thing. Another big thing, we were more accountable. We didn't have bubble wrap around us all the time. The things that we can and can't do even as parents now compared to them really helps or hurts us holding kids accountable.
Who do you think is at fault for that change?
Wow.
And how does that change? How do we change it back?
Yeah, I mean, it's societal, and I think parenting has just going with society. I think schools have moved with society, where we don't help kids get over obstacles. It's hard work to teach somebody to go over an obstacle, to go under an obstacle, to go through an obstacle. Our society has become a place in which we remove obstacles for people. That's not just for kids. When kids come back and tell me about basic training, I was in the military, and they tell me what they had to do or didn't have to do that we had to do. I'm like, are you serious? So, you want my plain, I'm pretty plain spoken. We're softer. We're soft.
Do you think technology has been a net positive or negative on the younger generations?
Wow. I think it's both. Right now, I would probably say more negative than anything else.
What's
I
your
think
biggest fear with technology?
that we become dumber. With AI, and it's not that I'm against AI. I'm not an old guy that says, oh, yeah, we don't want to advance. But as a teacher, my last couple of years, you give a kid an essay, they go to Chat GPT and write it. They don't have to think.
Yeah.
They don't have to think. Or you give them a problem and they look it up. Okay? That's great. They're using but we're not exercising our minds. I believe that we've not only become softer, but with every generation, technology is in one way making us smarter, in another way is making us much dumber.
So going back to you, what did your parents do for work?
My dad was a tool and die maker, so blue collar worker. My mom was a secretary, later on a paralegal. So we were probably as middle class gets.
As average York County as
yes,
York County
yes,
gets,
and we were. My parents or my dad was raised on a farm, but we moved up here. We were in the first neighborhood that was built in that area, so we were as suburban / rural middle class as it gets. Yeah.
Did you enjoy school as a child?
I hated it.
Really?
I hated school. It's a big joke in my family that I'm the one that ended up a teacher. My sister reminds me of it all the time. She was a valedictorian. I was not. I was happy with C's.
C's get degrees.
That's right. So, and it's because I just hated school.
Yeah.
I'm not the kind of person, and I wasn't the kind of kid that can sit in a seat for 42 minutes at a time and learn. It really then drove how I approached teaching, because number one, I understood the kids that don't like school.
Yeah.
And number two, my class was never going to be sit there for 42 minutes.
Yeah.
We were going to have fun. So when a kid walked in my room, my goal was a kid hated school. He walked in and said, yeah, you know what? Anderson's class isn't that bad. Or that's the part of the day that I look forward to.
Yeah. And what did you teach?
I taught American history.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How do you think schooling has changed in your 27 years in education?
Oh, wow. How long do we have? Do we have, do you have a while?
We got a lot of topics to cover. So,
number one is we hold kids less accountable. We're so slow or scared to either hurt somebody's feelings or to have to handle conflict with a parent. We have an accountability problem in schools. Used to be you go to the principal's office, you had a consequence. We don't have consequences in schools anymore, at least public schools, because you're not allowed to do anything to anybody.
Yeah.
You have in-school suspension, you have detention, in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension. Kids won't go to detention. So then you give them in school, it's not a big deterrent, and then you give them out-of-school suspension. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you for the reward. So there's not an accountability. And the other thing is, I think parental support. In the 1990s, I had far more parental support than I did in 2024.
I know when I was in school, getting in trouble at school, I was more in fear of the consequences at home.
100%.
You can put me in detention for all day for all I cared, but I was more afraid of the
That is
consequences
not
at
the
home.
case. I served as assistant principal for a while.
Okay.
You call home, and there are those parents that are like, I'll take care of it. And thank you very much. Increasingly, there's a lot more parents that ask, what were the circumstances?
Yeah.
Or what did the teacher do to make my child so angry?
Yeah.
Was it really that bad? We need parents, teachers, everybody to step up and make people accountable. If your kids don't like you for a while, that's okay. All right? There's a way to loving kids. It's easy to give them everything they want. Real love is having the courage to make them uncomfortable to teach them a lesson. And we just don't want to do that anymore.
Do you think parents are too caught up trying to be their kids' friends and
Yes.
put parenting off on schools?
Absolutely, 100%. There are really good parents out there. So don't get me wrong. School that I worked at was a true community school. Our school had great parent support overall. Our community supports our school.
How big was the average graduating class?
About 250. Okay. So, a medium-sized school. I think it was important. That's another thing. Our community is a community. So you have other people looking out for the best interest of your kids. But I don't think that's the norm anymore. That was great. I raised my kids in that community. My kids went K-12 in that public school. But we're much more concerned with having our kids like us than raising them to be responsible adults.
Where do you see this going in the future? Better, worse, about the same?
I don't see it getting better. I will say this, my political ideology is conservative, and outside of issues, that's my worldview, is a conservative worldview. I think this generation, because the left has gone so far wacko, and that includes left parenting, that you may see this generation upcoming be the first generation since the 1980s to be more conservative and more responsible and more accountable than their parents. That's the good news.
We saw the effects of soft parenting.
100%. 100%. It's comparable to the 60s. Yeah, the 60s generation, do what makes you feel good, whatever. And those parents raised a generation in the 80s that were more conservative than them. And we're seeing that now.
whenever you're out in public, like at a grocery store or something,
Sure.
and you see the way some of these kids talk to their parents.
Oh.
Like there's times where a kid says something to their parents, and I immediately just turn away because I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh, it's going down, and they're just like, now Johnny, and I'm
Yes,
like, what is this? What is this?
Or asking them, it starts with little kids. I see people asking, tie your shoes, put your shoes on, put your shoes on, put your shoes on. You ask once, maybe twice. Now you go outside barefoot.
Yeah.
Okay? So is it December and 30? Yeah. I told you what you need to do.
Yeah.
You know what? They'll put their shoes on next time.
Yeah.
So we've lost that.
People don't let their kids touch the hot burner
They
anymore.
don't want their kids to hurt.
Yeah.
All you have to do is ask a coach or an athletic director. That's where it reveals itself most. They spend half of their time in meetings with parents because their kid's not getting ABC. Because so that is probably what I've seen in my life, the biggest indicator. They won't say to a kid, practice harder.
Yeah.
They won't say, wait your turn. You're a sophomore. You'll get your turn. Just keep working hard. They're in the office asking the coach why their kid's not playing.
So after graduating York College, you joined the United States Air Force.
Yes.
First and foremost, thank you for your service.
Sure, thank you.
Tell me a little bit about your time in the Air Force.
Well, I was in the Air Force. That's what I always wanted to do, is be in the military. My sister was just telling this story on a podcast I was on, that I always wanted to be in the military. My mom literally made me go to college. Nobody from her family had ever gone to college before, and that we were the first generation. So it was very important to my mother that I go to college. So went to college. As soon as college was over,
What'd you
enlisted
study?
in the Air Force. I studied history and education.
Okay.
But I never went back and I never did student teaching. I hadn't finished all my education classes. Graduated, went into the Air Force. In the Air Force, loved it. My goal was to be chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Now, when I was 22, I just thought it was a cool title, But had a head injury, started having seizures. When I had the series of seizures, you lose all your weapons certifications, and you're not worldwide deployable. So I was honorably discharged, but medically discharged. When I got out, there was a program called Troops to Teachers. And so if you had a degree, the Air Force would, or any of the branches of service, would pay for you to go back to student teaching, finishing up education classes. And that's how I became a teacher, through that program.
Do you think your military service played a role in how you approached your teaching?
Yeah, I grew up a lot in the Air Force.
Okay.
I was a
Military
screw-up.
family?
Yeah. Some, but not directly, no parents, but uncles and things like that. So not really a heavy military family.
Oh, you mean you grew, the military made you grow up?
Oh,
you
the
didn't
military,
grow up in the
yes.
Yeah, okay.
The military made me grow up.
Gotcha.
Like a lot of college kids, I was a screwball. Remember, I hated school. I didn't like classes in college any better. But I grew up and learned discipline and learned responsibility and accountability. And it certainly helped me in my teaching to include that into how I dealt with kids.
How does that also play a role now in how you legislate?
Yes, and again, I go back to accountability. I go back to sacrifice and service. A service person, they're not making a lot of money. Especially the grunts or those that are out in the field, they're not doing it for prestige.
Yeah.
I always say the best soldier are those soldiers that nobody really knows what you did. So they're not getting prestige. They're not getting money. It's purely service. It's purely doing the right thing. And so, yeah, it does guide me in this job because I came into this late. This is a duty for me to be a legislator. I didn't aspire to this. I had a lot more fun, and it was a lot more enjoyable being a teacher and assistant to the athletic director. So I would say yes. And honestly, that's one of the biggest problems in the chamber, just down the hall from here, is that they don't understand service. That for most in that chamber, this is a career. And they have aspirations. And so they lose the sense of service. And that's what the founders intended this to be. All the founding fathers had other jobs.
Yeah.
Okay? It's not like today. So
John
yes,
Adams was a very poor farmer.
very poor farmer. His law business almost went under, but he tried to keep it going. They did other things. This was never intended to be a career, but that's all it is now. It's a career.
So why did you want to become a teacher?
Honest answer, I had a wife that I've been married to for 1 month. I got out of the military and didn't have a job.
So you met your wife in the military?
I met my wife. She was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where we met. And when we got out, and was unexpected, I needed to do something.
Yeah.
So I would say I went into the classroom as hesitantly as I came into this job.
Okay.
If your goal is to be chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and then you walk into a room with 24 teenagers, that was a letdown at the time.
Yeah.
What I did realize is, but I wasn't one of those people like, I always wanted to be a teacher.
Yeah.
You
studied it, didn't you, in college?
Yes, I did education.
Why did you study
but
that in college?
my main focus was history.
Okay.
So
it was just something you were interested in?
Yes, and I knew that my plan was to go to the military after.
Gotcha.
So I had no plan to.
So you went to college because your parents told you to?
That is correct. My mother,
Gotcha.
out of respect for my mother more than anything else, I could have defied her and said, forget it, I'm enlisted now, which is what I wanted to do. She was very, very emphatic that I go to college first, and out of respect, that's what I did. So, but I love being a teacher. Love it.
Where you were at that point in between high school and going to college, if that was today with the cost of education, do you think you would have done it any differently?
I think that I
would have won.
Yeah, I think I would have. For me personally, I probably would have either going in the military right away with the blessing of my mom, or looked at a trade.
Yeah.
I think that's what's most important right now. There's a lot of college graduates that don't have jobs.
Yeah.
And whether that is a major that's not marketable, college, I agree with Charlie Kirk on this, that in many ways college is a ripoff. That's not for everybody. I think that college, obviously a degree is something you can never take away from somebody. But look at the price of college compared to inflation. The price of school has gone up so much faster than anything else that parents can't even save for it anymore. Whereas you can go to a VOTEC in high school, go to a trade school for 2 years. You can pop out of there making $75,000, $80,000 a year being a plumber or a welder. So I think that's we've got to encourage kids. We've told kids a lie for 30 years that you have to go to college to be successful. And I want to be very clear. That's not to say that nobody should go to college.
Yeah.
Okay. I want my doctor to have gone to med school. That's pretty important. All right. I want teachers to be trained. But there's so many kids that go to college that either don't belong in college. Many have gone to college and don't want to go to college. So if it were me, because I wasn't a classroom kid, I doubt that I would have gone on to a 4-year degree. So
you were a teacher for 20, you leave the Air Force.
Yep.
Become a teacher for 27 years.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, Representative Dawn Kiefer announced that she's not running for re-election.
Yep.
Tell me about that, about that process of how your name eventually ends up on the ballot.
Well, there were 4 people in the primary. The primary was set. I think people were lining up behind certain candidates. I knew Dawn was retiring. I knew Dawn had her kids in school.
Were you active in politics at the time?
I wouldn't say active. I wasn't, early on in my 20s, my wife and I were committee people, but that was 4 to 6 years. I was in, the Northern York County Republican Club and county committee. But I hit 30, we had kids, and I was conscientious about it.
Yeah.
We were involved that way, but not involved in politics, like some of my opponents, at least in the primary. Some people had suggested, like, hey, maybe you do this. Maybe I was like, no, because I did. I love my job. I mean, 2 years ago, my life was pretty smooth.
Yeah.
My wife and I were starting to plan for retirement years down the road, and we were empty nesters, so I could do really what I wanted to do. Went and talked to my pastor and said, hey, there's some people that are mentioning this to me. And my pastor is also a very good friend of mine for 20 years, said, you might want to put the brakes on this and pray about it.
Yeah. Who was the first person to bring it up to you? Do you remember?
A teacher down the
teacher?
hall. Yeah,
Really? Okay.
another teacher and community member, dad in our community.
What was your reaction to that?
Well, we just kind of laughed about it. It wasn't really serious at the time until I talked to my pastor. He said, put the brakes on it. Said, hey, we need to pray about this.
Yeah.
And when a pastor says pray about something, you know you're probably going to end up doing something that you don't want.
Yeah.
You know, that's code for,
Yeah.
So we did get a prayer team together just to pray for clarity. And I think that was a Tuesday, and I want to say a Friday. I'd ask kids on a Thursday what would they think? Friday, 4 kids walked in my room and made the case. Said, Mr. A, I remember these words exactly. One of the kids looked at me and said, Mr. A, we don't want you to leave, but, and then they laid out what I should do.
Did they sorry, did they put together like a presentation for you, like a slideshow?
I have 2 letters
Really?
in my
Okay.
top drawer of my desk in my office in the Capitol. It's the only 2 things that are in that drawer, and it's the 2 letters that there were 4 kids, 2 letters that they wrote and handed to me about this run. So I get them out and read them. One of their big things was, you've always told us to do this the right way, that I point out what's wrong with politics, what's wrong with government. And the challenge is basically, can you do it the right way? And our theme for the campaign was sacred honor, the last 2 words of the Declaration of Independence. I try every day not to dishonor my community or dishonor my family. But those kids also stepped up. My first campaign meeting were 11 AP history students and 2 parents. They did my website. They did all my social media. They knocked doors. I had an army of volunteers. We didn't have as much money as everybody else.
How did your coworkers react?
Very supportive.
Really?
Every
Okay.
one of them. And regardless,
Even though you were a Republican.
yes, regardless of their political ideology. Now, also keep in mind that we are in a small community. It's a conservative area. We have a large number of Republicans and people of faith within our high school. But even those that I was ideologically different from, I had nobody that was not supportive.
Okay. So why did you want to run? Like, aside from people pushing you into it.
Well, I didn't want to.
Yeah.
Okay, but why did I run? Maybe if I look at it that way. That Friday I called home to my wife and said, I think we should be in. So then I had to decide why.
What did your wife
say? She was hesitant.
Yeah.
But she saw it as, okay, if this is God's leading for your life, then this is God's leading for your life. Because it's a big commitment for a spouse. People forget that sometimes. It's rough. It has completely changed our lives, not just for the here and now, but has changed our lives for the next 10 years. Because of the commitment that we made to do this. She has been supportive all the way. She has worked on campaigns and supports me. My wife is addicted to PCN now. I come home, she analyzes my votes. Yeah. She'll even say, when are you going in session? I want to watch. So she is extremely, extremely supportive. So, but your original question.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. Education is my primary goal. Like I said, everything is through the lens of kids. What is best for kids? Because education is not just here and now. Education is both important for individuals, that they seek and find success and fulfillment, that they become community members that contribute. But it's also the future of America. We need kids that understand what is important and foundational about their country. What is responsibility? What is accountability? What is America all about? We need to raise kids that are going to strengthen and preserve our republic.
How has this experience been running for office? And is it different than what you expected?
I would not say it's different. Knowing what goes on in politics has been incredibly different.
You were pretty jaded from the start.
100%. 2 weeks in, I was freaking depressed. I mean, I was completely, my idealism just went out the door. I walked out of here, I called some people who were close to me, I'm like, I cannot believe this. It's not what the founders intended. I remember I kept telling people that. It's not what the founders intended. It is corrupt. There is so much personal ambition. There is lying. Lying is normal here. Somebody told me
it's expected.
It's expected. It's normal. Nobody turns ahead. Somebody even told me, somebody who I admire said, Mark, you need to get used to the fact that the truth is irrelevant here.
Yeah.
Well, that's not a world that I live in.
I hear very often that Harrisburg is like a high school. Is that a insult to you to high schools?
Yeah, you're right. It probably is an insult to high school.
You would know better than anybody. Are high schools worse?
I have no problem saying my teenagers that I taught are far more honest as a whole, far more conscientious than the 203 members as a whole. It's not individuals, but as a whole, than the 203. My 150 students, more conscientious, more truthful, more non-biased than the 203 members of this House. And I have no problem saying that. There are liars in that House. And as a friend of mine, Mike Jones has said publicly, you don't need a resume to run for office. So let's just say there's some people that are, let's just say it. There's some people that are really incompetent and should never be making decisions for 65,000 people.
Was gossip in your high school worse than it is here?
I would say that's the same. I often compare this job to a high school cafeteria.
Okay.
There's not much difference whatsoever. Not whatsoever.
So recently a bill you supported was signed into law, and it had to do with career and tech education certifications with veterans. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, this was probably the number one bill near and dear to my heart. Early on, it was my first hearing on a committee, an education committee, and it was about, large part of it was about teacher shortages. I already had some ideas about teacher shortages, and we don't have a teacher shortage overall. We have a teacher shortage in STEM and special education, primarily. There's not a shortage of history or English teachers. There's not a shortage of mainline subjects. But if somebody's a chemist, it's hard to get them to teach chemistry. So one of my ideas was to do a troops to teachers at the state level. And that troops to teachers idea would be if a guy was in the Marine Corps for 6 years, was an electrician, had been certified and trained by the Marine Corps to be an electrician, let's make a quick pathway for him to get out of the Marine Corps and teach electricity at a VOTEC. Just makes sense. So at that hearing, I expressed that. I expressed it to some colleagues afterwards. I gave an interview afterwards about it. So fortunately or unfortunately, however you look at it, that bill came through under somebody else's name, which is you have to swallow your pride. That's the way the way it works. I had a bill that I actually wrote. Not that I wrote it. By the way, nobody writes their own bills around here. You have the ideas. You have some input.
I think I've met 2 reps who actually write. Who have written their own.
That's
bills.
right. People write them for you. Some people, and this happens all the time, don't even read their own freaking bills. And all you have to do, you can go on and watch some of my my social media as I question witnesses. It's pretty obvious that the people that are sponsoring the bills never read the bills. But this specific bill was really important to me. Kind of had to suck my pride in. I have one thing on my desk, one plaque, that paraphrase says, there's no measure to what a man can do if he's unconcerned about who gets the credit. So if I'm going to live by that, I have to look at that and say it passed unanimously. The governor just signed it recently, and I am more than pleased because that's what's good for kids. It's what's good for those young men getting out of the military and having a direction to go.
I'd take that as a win any day.
Yep, I'll take it as a win, 100%.
I believe the first time I met you, we spoke about how we spoke about a bill that the Democrats were trying to push through, which essentially, to my understanding, subsidized AP tests for low-income students. On the surface, sounds like a great idea, right? And then I talked to you about it, and you, to my surprise, because of your background in education, thought it was a terrible idea.
And it was. Here's a great example. That bill is a great example of, number one, voting on emotion instead of truth. Now, I do not blame the legislators that voted for it because on the surface, this bill, they said, look, you take a AP test for college credit for especially poor kids, that we would subsidize that test and they could take it for free.
What is an AP test?
Okay, advanced placement classes, which are sponsored by the College Board. The College Board does SATs, and the same people run AP classes. You take the class, you have an AP teacher, you take a test at the end, and if you score a certain score on the test, you get college credit for it. Now, back up, because this is a part of the context of why I was so against the bill. In AP credits are being accepted less and less at colleges. So you can take the class. A 3, it's graded 1 to 5. A 3 is a passing grade. But that doesn't mean you're guaranteed college credit. So you get a 3, you might go to Penn State, but Penn State's like, we don't accept a 3, we only accept a 5 for that class. Or they can say, we don't accept that credit for that at all. So you just paid for the test, you took the class is rigorous, and you get no college credit. I'm a bigger fan of dual enrollment and college in a classroom, where colleges are working, or high schools are working with colleges to do college classes sponsored by Pitt or Penn State or Shippensburg, whatever, here in the Commonwealth. And then they take that at college curriculum and get that credit. So the College Board is losing market share. So what do they have to do? They have to come up with a way to make money. They're a nonprofit, but there's been article after article, and I'm not talking about conservative, I'm talking about New York Times, those types of papers that have accused accurately of the College Board for violating their nonprofit status. Main thing is they have hundreds of millions, over $1 billion in accounts, and that was my opposition to this bill. They were asking Pennsylvania's taxpayers to subsidize a test that they had plenty of money themselves to subsidize. They have enough money to give those tests to poor kids for free, but they didn't want to spend their own money. Once I explained that, I think we had like 20 to 30 members that were against the bill. We got 70-something till we were done. Once people understood the truth, they saw what it was. The College Board lobbyists came in my office after the hearing when I spoke out about it and said, we're kind of arguing their point. And one of their things was, well, kids are doing better on the test. I said, kids are doing better because you guys have made it easier to score higher because they want those kids to get the credit. I said, you're dumbing down the test and you're not letting those that are assessing the test grade it as rigorous as it should be. Their response, isn't that what colleges are doing? That's what everybody's doing. That was their response. So you want to go back to kids, how they are now?
I took
There you go.
AP Physics in high school.
Yeah.
And I didn't take it for the AP test or the
Sure.
course. It was just I enjoyed physics. And when we were doing the test prep, I realized that if you just wrote, based off of the scoring criteria, if I just wrote down every single formula, I would get at least a 3.
Yeah,
So I spent the entire test, writing out, because I knew the formulas, right?
Right.
The math behind it was not as well. But I wrote out every single formula that I could possibly think could be used in assessment. Because even if you put down a formula that isn't even using it doesn't matter. It's what do you have?
Right, right.
And I got a 3 on all of them.
Yeah, so
because I never even solved a problem.
Yeah, it is. It's the College Board has become. It's not credible as far as I'm concerned anymore. They want to maintain their market share. They are a monopoly because there's no other competition. This is not me saying this. This is lawsuits. They've been challenged for having a monopoly. They've been challenged for violating their nonprofit status. It's a scam, and we can do better by kids.
So it seems pouring money into special interest organizations with huge slush funds is a common occurrence in government. Whether it's on the federal, state, or local level, I understand that to a certain context, it's a status quo, right? But the one bill that still confuses me is the one where the state wanted to pay for an assessment of every single school building. What was that about, and who, if anybody, even benefits from that?
Again, I sometimes in this place I'm trying to figure out, okay, who's a bad actor and who's just stupid. And I know we're not supposed to say that. I've been told numerous times about decorum, and if something's stupid, call it stupid. All right, this bill was dumb, just straight up dumb. It made no sense. I don't know this for sure, but I always say, look, when something's dumb here, follow the money. You can usually follow the money and find out. We also have a groupthink mentality here, and that's especially on the Democratic side, and I have no problem saying that, because all you have to do is look at the board when we vote. That 102 sticks together all the time. So it's one of two things. Either the Democrats in this House agree on every single thing, because they never break, every single issue, 102 agree, or you are voting for things that violate your own conscience. I have a big problem with that. And that's not to say that I disrespect individuals within the other party. There's a lot of good people who I respect, talk to. I've asked them, why? I mean, I look them in the eye sometimes. I know you don't agree with this, but you vote for it anyway. This is a perfect example of that bill. There have to be people with common sense that say, why are we doing this? The bill was this simple. And this is an example of somebody who had a sponsorship of the bill and could not answer a single question on the bill. It was obvious that the person didn't read it and didn't write it. It couldn't answer anything, and I'll give you an example. So they want to assess every single building from the foundation to the rooftop in every school district in the state of Pennsylvania. That's what the bill was. Assess it, find all the problems with it, and that was the bill. Not fix it, just find problems. That's insulation, it's electric, it's HVAC, it's ADA accessible. So the first question I asked, now there were no provisions for, like, somebody built a brand new building last year, we assess it. The bill was horrible. It was so horribly written. So my first question in committee was, how many buildings are there? Look right in the eyes of the sponsor. How many buildings? Nothing. Boop! Blank face. The chairman of the committee, well, I think that's the purpose of the bill. We should know a lot about the buildings. And I'm like, and so he's going on. And it made no sense. His answer made absolutely no sense whatsoever. You have to know how many buildings before you're going to assess it. So a lot of times, if you're good at questioning witnesses, you should know the answers to the questions you're asking. So I said, well, 2,954. That's how many buildings. So we were going to ask taxpayers to assess 2,954. Then we passed an idiotic amendment that said we're going to add athletic facilities, maintenance buildings, and administration buildings.
Just keep adding on.
So it could be 4,000, 5,000, who knows?
Yeah.
Next question. How much does it cost? Nothing.
Crickets.
Nothing. So I said, well, SiteLogic, a company that does these assessments, said that just for HVAC alone per district would be $100,000. They had no idea how much it costs. Didn't even know how many buildings. It wasn't a serious bill. It was dumb.
Now, one of the biggest reasons that this is dumb is because it's not needed because schools already do this.
Schools, but not only that, the chairman of the committee in his closing remarks said the schools are already doing this. And I'm looking around thinking, is anybody listening? Well, if the school's already doing it, you just made our point. Contact them and ask for a spreadsheet. So we're going to spend $500 million that you could call a school district and say, hey, just give us a report of your own assessment.
And just so people who are listening understand the scope of $500 million in a state budget, our budget right now is just under $50 billion.
Correct.
Right? So,
and
that's about 1% of our budget right there.
Yeah,
would go
for
to this.
one bill.
Yeah.
One thing.
One bill.
And to, I say this about this legislature all the time. We always talk about test scores in schools. I'm going to tell you right now, the math scores of the 203 legislators and staff is below basic. We could settle a lot of our debates with addition and subtraction. I mean, we're not talking about calculus. We're talking about addition and subtraction.
Philadelphia math.
That's right.
Education for you,
so
right?
Anders, there you go. I mean, that is a perfect example. Yeah. One thing, 1% of the budget.
Which doesn't sound like a lot, but I mean.
But think of everything that goes into the budget.
Yeah. One bill accounting for a whole percentage.
Yes. One bill that people are already doing.
Yeah.
Now, why then? And you guys start asking yourself, why are we doing this? And I don't want to assume, but it certainly raises a question of who's benefiting from, and you should ask that. I think a responsible legislator should ask who's benefiting from this bill. It's like when I made a decision as a school administrator. A school administrator, a mentor of mine, one told me, when you make a decision, you've got to think about who does this impact? Everybody. So when something stupid comes through like that, you got to think, all right, who's benefiting from this?
Pennsylvania spends close to $23,000 per K-12 student every year. The cost, that's pretty much the cost of some colleges right now. Every budget for at least this past decade always includes record funding in education. Within that decade, since 2015, Pennsylvania has increased per student funding by nearly 44%. Yet in that same time frame, graduation rates have remained stagnant, hovering around 87%. In 2015, the percentage of students who scored proficient or above on PSSA tests was 56%. It has now dropped slightly to 53%. In 2015, the percentage of students who scored proficient or above on Keystone tests was 65%. That number is now 52%.
No, wait, Anders, are you suggesting that we are not getting our money's worth in spending? Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, my question is to you. Do you think the solution to better education outcomes is more money? And if the answer is no, what is?
We are 7th in the nation in funding education. That we do not have enough funding or adequate funding is a myth. Again, this is a math thing. It's a myth. Now, it's good with all the money that PSEA sends to candidates. They're not going to ever say it's a myth. They know it because it's math. And if they don't understand the math, then I question their intelligence. So we are not getting our money's worth. More dollars is not the case, as you just indicated. I don't have to explain this. You just said it right in the numbers. I'm more concerned about how school districts are using the money. How are they using the money? For example, over the past 10 years, administrations have increased by 40%. So administrators, we're in more and more top heavy. Now think of that in a company. What is a company going to cut first? Middle management. Mm-hmm. In education, we're going the exact opposite direction. We complain there's not enough money, but we hire more middle management. So it's not a spending It's not a spending problem. We talked earlier about society and how we, look at things and how we're raising kids, but it's a misuse of dollars. That's the biggest problem. And it's a shame. If we want to go further, I think it's despicable. And it's just a part of the culture. That's who we are.
Representative Marc Anderson, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.